That's more for the live stream than it is for here.
That's an expensive microphone.
We begin our service with Hine Ma Tov on page 128, 128. For those guests with us this evening, you can find our prayer book, Mishkan Tefillah. It looks like this, and if there's not enough pews because of the numbers, go find a number and you'll find the prayer books, or you guys can share from your class. Again, 124. Cantor. And Caleb, can we get the speakers on too with Paul with the piano? Much appreciated.
טוב ומנעים שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומנעים שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומנעים שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומנעים שבת אחים גם יחד. How good it is, how sweet it is to be together on this day. How good it is, how sweet it is to be together on this day. Hine ma tov u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad. Shalom aleichem, salam aleikum. Shalom aleichem, salam aleikum. Shalom aleichem, salam aleikum. Shalom aleichem, salam aleikum. How good it is, how sweet it is to be together on this day. How good it is, how sweet it is to be together on this day. Hine ma tov u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad.
The top of page 124, we continue, and please join me. We enter the sanctuary to welcome Shabbat. Within these walls, we sit surrounded by numberless generations. Our ancestors built a synagogue as a visible sign of God's presence in their midst. Throughout our long history and their endless wandering, it has endured, a beacon of truth, love, and justice for all humanity. Its presence guided our ancestors to lives of righteousness, holding up to them a vision of their truest selves. Now we, in our turn, come into the sanctuary to affirm the sacredness of our lives. May we enter this place in peace. May holiness wrap around us as we cross its threshold. Weariness, doubt, the flaws within our human hearts, the harshness of the weak, let these drop away at the door. In the brightness of Shabbat, let peace settle upon us as we lift our hearts in prayer, and it's my great pleasure and honor to welcome our colleague, our bat mitzvah, Monica Singletary, who will light our Shabbat candles. 120. For those who are able, we rise together for our Kiddush 123.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol am veromemanu mikol lashon v'kideshanu b'mitzvotav. Matiten lanu Adonai Eloheinu be'ahava Shabbatot limnucha u'moadim lesimcha chagim uzmanim lesason et yom haShabbat hazeh ve'et yom chag hasukot hazeh zman simchatenu. Mikra kodesh seichel yitziat Mitzrayim kifanu bacharta ve'otanu kidashta mikol ha'amim v'shabbat moadei kodshecha be'ahava uvratzon besimcha uvsason hinchaltanu. Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh haShabbat v'Yisrael ve'hazmanim.
L'chaim.
Chaim.
Please be seated. Now, one of the wonderful things about our new prayer book, and I'm so thrilled that we can say our new prayer book officially, is that it does a great job with the festival services. So we're going to turn to page 389 because we're in the middle of Chol Moed Sukkot. And for Shabbat services tonight, there's two things that we do want to teach you about. We're not going to shake the lulav and etrog, because it is Shabbos and we don't shake the lulav and etrog on Shabbat. It's considered an art of creation. And second, normally we have Kabbalat Shabbat. And in Kabbalat Shabbat, we do a series of psalms, especially the 6 psalms that celebrate the creation of the world. But since we're in Chol Moed Sukkot, the in-between days of Yontif, which is the first 2 days and the last 2 days, we're in a weird week. So it's a special week. So we don't pray for the miracle of the creation of the world because we're in this sacred space, and this comes to us from the mystics. So the middle of page 389, we read together where it says, Sukkot. Tonight, let our shelters be strung with the finest fruits of creation, love, fertility, prosperity, and wisdom. Let us promise to feed the hungry. Let our harvests bring peace. And we continue with page 390 with Sadiq Katzamar.
Sadiq Katzamar yifrach ke'erez balvanon שתולים בבית אדוני בחצרות אלוהינו יפריחו עוד ינון בשיבה דשנים ורעננים להגיד כי ישר אדוני צורי צורי ולא עוולת בו.
The bottom of page 393. Teach me, O God, a blessing, a prayer on the mystery of a withered leaf, unripened fruit so fair, on the freedom to see, to sense, to breathe, to know, to hope, to despair. Teach my lips a blessing, a hymn of praise as each morning and night you renew your days. Lest my day be today as the one before, lest routine set my ways. We continue with our Chetzi Kaddish. Right there, 392.
יתגדל ויתקדש מרבה.
Amen.
בעלמא דברה חירותי וימליך מלכותי. בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי כל בית ישראל. בגלה בגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך לעולם ולעולמי עולמיה. יתברך יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי קודשא בריחו לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה דמירם בעלמא ואמרו amen. Please rise for the Baruch Hu.
Am I awake? Am I prepared? Are you listening to my prayer? Can you hear my voice? Can you understand? Am I awake? Am I prepared? Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam ba'ed, le'olam ba'ed. Yadadai-dai-dai, 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 yadadai-dai-dai.
Please turn to page 396. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bidvaro ma'ariv aravim bechokma poteach she'arim uvitvuna mishane itim umachalif et hazmanim umsader et hakochavim b'mishmerotehem barakia kirtzono borei yom v'layla golel or mipnei choshech v'choshech mipnei or uma'avir yom umevi layla umavdil bein yom uvein layla Adonai Sifaot Shemo El Chai v'Kayam Tamid Yimloch Aleinu Leolam Va'ed Baruch Atah Adonai Hama'ariv Aravim.
Amen. Turn to the next page, Ahavat Olam. 398. Ahavat Olam Beit Yisrael Amcha Ahavta Torah u'mitzvot Chukim u'mishpatim Otanu limadta Al kein Adonai Eloheinu B'shochmeinu uvkumeinu Nasiach bechukecha V'nismach b'divrei Toratecha U'b'mitzvotecha Leolam ba'ed Ki heim chayenu Be'orech yameinu בהם נחכה יומם ולילה. באהבתך אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים, ברוך אתה אדוני, אוהב עמו ישראל. שמע ישראל, אדוני אלוהינו, אדוני אחד. ברוך שם כבוד מלכותו לעולם ועד.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושינתם לבניך, ודיברת בם בשבתך, בביתך, ובלתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם להיות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
אדוני אלוהיכם אמת.
The top of page 405, we continue with our festival evening, 405. Hold fast to dreams, for a dream die. Life is a broken winged bird which cannot fly. Hold fast to dreams, for when dreams go, life is a barren field covered with snow. Hold fast to dreams. We continue with our Michomocha 406.
Kamocha bailim Adonai, mi kamocha netar bakodesh, nora tehilot osef ele, nora tehilot osef ele, malchutecha ra'u banecha, ים לפני משה ומרים, זה אלי אנו ואמרו, אדוני מלוך לעולם ועד.
The top of page 409, we continue. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Eternal God, help us to walk with good companions, to live with hope in our hearts and eternity in our thoughts, that we may lie down in peace and rise up, waiting to do your will. Blessed is the guardian of Israel, whose love gives light to all the world. Baruch atah Adonai haboreshukat shalom aleinu, Ve'al Amo Yisrael, Ve'al Yerushalayim. 408.
Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu l'shalom, Mehamidenu shomreinu l'chaim. Spread the shelter of your peace over us. Guide us in wisdom, compassion, and trust. Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu l'shalom, Vehamidenu shomreinu l'chaim. Save us for the sake of your name. Shield us from hatred, sorrow, and pain. Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu l'shalom, Vehamidenu shomreinu
We continue the middle of page 410. The people of Israel shall keep Shabbat, observing Shabbat throughout the ages as a covenant for all time. It is a sign for all time between me and the people Israel. For in 6 days Adonai made heaven and earth, and on the seventh day God ceased from work and was refreshed. And we continue. Varaber Moshe et Moedei Adonai ben el bnei Yisrael, and Moses declared the appointed festivals of Adonai to the people of Israel.
V'shameru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat l'torotam berit olam beini u'bein b'nei Yisrael oti le'olam le'olam ki sheishet yamim asa Adonai et hashamayim ve'et haaretz ubayom hashmi shavat vayinafash.
And we jump back to page 165, and I'll give you a moment, 165, as we begin our tefillah. Prayer invites God's presence to suffuse our spirits, God's will to prevail in our lives. Prayer may not bring water to parched fields, nor mend a broken bridge, nor rebuild a ruined city. But prayer can water an arid soul, mend a broken heart, rebuild a weakened will. For those who are able, we rise together for our tefillah 166.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei Avoteinu v'Imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel v'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon גומל חסדים טובים וקונה הכל, וסוחר חסדי אבות ואימהות, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה. מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם בעזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי מתים אתה רב להושיע. מוריד הטל, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי מתים ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות ומידו מלך, מלך ממית ומחיה ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה להחיות מתים. ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי המתים. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יהללוך סלה. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש.
The top of page 173, and please join me. May these hours of rest and renewal open our hearts to joy and our minds to truth. May all who struggle find rest on this day. May all who suffer find solace. May all who hurt find healing on this day. May all who despair find purpose. May all who hunger find fulfillment on this day, and may this day fulfill its promise. Baruch atah Adonai Mekadesh HaShabbat. We continue on page 174 with our Ritzeh.
Ritzeh Adonai Eloheinu be'amcha Yisrael u'tefilatam be'ahava tekabel u'tehil ratzon tamid avodat Yisrael. Yisrael amecha el karov lechol kore'ah v'nei lavatecha b'choneinu shefoch ruchacha aleinu b'techezena eineinu b'shuvcha le'tzion. Baruch atah Adonai hamachazir shechinato
the top of page 179. And please join me. Grant us peace, your most precious gift, O eternal source of peace, and give us the will to proclaim its message to all the peoples of the earth. Bless our country as a safeguard of peace, its advocate among the nations. May contentment reign within our borders, health and happiness within our homes. Strengthen the bonds of friendship and fellowship among all the inhabitants of every land. Plant virtue in every soul, and may the love of thy name hallow every home and every heart. Praise are you, Eternal One, who blesses our people with peace. Top of page 178.
Omerav al Yisrael amcha tasim leolam. Shalom rav al Yisrael amcha tasim. אתה הוא מלך אדון לכל השלום, כי אתה הוא מלך אדון לכל השלום. בטוב בעיניך לברך את עמך ישראל בכל עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. ברוך אתה אדוני המברך את עמו ישראל בשלום.
We take a few moments for silent prayer.
רצון אמרי פי, יחיו לרצון אמרי פי, והגיון ליבי לפניך, אדוני צורי וגואלי. Oh, may the words of my mouth, the meditation of my heart be acceptable before you, O God, my rock and my redeemer. Oseh shalom bimromav, Yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, me'imeru, me'imeru, amen.
At this moment in our service, we think of those in our community, our friends, our loved ones, those who mean so much to us who are in need of healing of body or spirit. On the Shabbat and this Chol Moed, we think of Linda Applebaum, Cindy Silverman Bailey, Sophia Berry, Margaret Bell, Harold Seitlin, Deborah Chargois, Karen Edwards, Emmeline Fries, Ruth Graffin Fromstein, Edward Goldberg, Barbara Goldstone, Elaine Gross, Josie Hatfield, Evelyn Held, Donald and Maida Himmel, Norma Jill Jacobson, Corey Kessler, Laney Klein, Bart Kolber, Jerry Lapidus, Dr. Wayne Lewis, Jeffrey Muss, Leslie Simon, Liz Slive, Christy St. Charles, Jennifer Ware, Brenda Weinstein, Jesse Weisberg, and Elisa Rosemore Whitehead. For those with us this evening and you're thinking of a loved one or friend and wish to share a name out loud, we invite you to do so as my eyes meet yours. For those names mentioned out loud and for those names that are still in our hearts, our Misha Berach, our prayer for healing, 371.
Source of strength, who blessed the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say,
Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Mo'adim l'simcha. I think the two main reasons why we celebrate Passover and why we celebrate Sukkot, Judaism has this idea of historical empathy, that if our ancestors experienced it, that we do our best to attempt to feel what it's like to be in their shoes, to experience what they experience in order to grow as a Jewish community and to be ever more connected to God, Torah, and Israel. And when we look at Pesach, especially that idea of historical empathy, that we were once slaves in the land of Egypt, and we observe this holiday to taste freedom, the taste of redemption, and that's why we don't eat leavened bread. And the symbolism of the Passover Seder, again, celebrates this idea of historical empathy. And it's also a pilgrimage festival. And here we are in the middle days of Sukkot, a joyous holiday. And again, this holiday focuses on historical empathy, that after the taste of freedom, wandering in the wilderness for 40 years came with great difficulty, but nevertheless, God's protection. And as we are commanded, if we live outside Eretz Israel, we dwell in the sukkah, we eat, we sleep, we are in the sukkah for 8 days to feel what it was like to live in the wilderness. And if we're in Israel, because that's for another issue regarding the calendar system, they do it for 7 days. But Sukkot is filled with metaphors. And I know that for the past couple of weeks, we've been having long services and we've been hit with many long sermons. I realize I spoke for 30 minutes on Yom Kippur, and I apologize for that, But anyways, I don't want to do to you right this moment, but I want to give you just a few wonderful metaphorical things to take away as we observe Sukkot. So the first lesson comes from Rabbi Samson Raphael Hirsch, and Rabbi Hirsch is considered the father of what we would call modern Orthodox Judaism. He's writing from the German-speaking lands in the 19th century, and he came up with this idea, im derech eretz, that Jews in the German-speaking lands, they can engage in German secular world, but they need to be committed to God-torn Israel and be a halachic Jew. He understood Sukkot, and this is a really great lesson for us as we begin our new year that's all about humility and perspective. It's remembering what we have and remembering to be grateful for our family and friends. So here's what he teaches us, is that the meaning of Sukkot is that we don't rely on our wealth, because wealth can come and go. And he teaches us that our castle is no more secure than our sukkah. So things can happen. So the purpose of living in these booths, these Sukkot, is that when you see the stars in the sky through the skach, which is the covering, to teach us that we build our home, or we build our castle, on the firm foundation of having faith in Adonai, with kindness the way we live. And this is why we observe this holiday. So to be grateful for what we have and not to be jealous of someone else. And the sukkah is the ultimate reminder to have humility in this world. So that's one lesson I want to teach you about Sukkot. Another teaching comes from the Midrash, from a rabbi 1,800 years ago, Rabbi Bachya. And he teaches us that the sukkah, as we live in this booth for 8 days, it's to have hope. As we live in this, as we eat in this, this is temporary, that our exile in this world is also temporary, that God willing, there will be this messianic age where we can return to have a peaceful world for all of humanity. So again, embrace the idea of a temporary world, being in exile, and the sukkah is the reminder that our suffering, the world's suffering, will hopefully come to an end. And the third teaching is my favorite, and it comes from our Midrashim. So these are interpretations or homilies written about 18 to 1900 years ago, and they're interpretations of the Torah and other biblical books. In addition to that, Jewish mysticism also picks up on this midrashic story. So they believe the word sukkah, as we know means booth, has a deeper and more spiritual meaning. And it means something when you were in the wilderness and Israel acquired this spiritual elevation. So they look at the word yiskach, which is another name for our matriarch, Sarah. And here's the teaching. Why was Sarah called Yiskach? Call it a nickname, because she saw, and they're playing with the Hebrew letters, she saw the Hebrew word of sukkah and was able to see God's presence, almost tangibility, to see that physical form to give comfort. And therefore, what we learn from this is that when we are stripped of our security, when safety seems such a trouble for us, that when we are in our sukkah, we can get this higher elevation of feeling God's presence in our life. We get this with friends, and above all, this Midrash teaches us that we get it with our friends through kinship. So yes, Sukkot is a pilgrimage festival. We wave the lulav and etrog. We don't do it on Shabbos because it's a violation of creation. But these metaphors teach us about humility, about perspective, that our suffering hopefully is temporary. And then when we focus hard enough, we're able to feel God's presence in our lives. So my charge to you tonight is try to find that yiskach, that sukkah in all of us to see God's presence in our life. Bodom lisimcha, Hag Sameach, have a wonderful Sukkot, Shabbat Shalom. We turn to page 586 for our Aleinu.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ היום ההוא ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד.
We turn to page 593 at the top, and another beautiful reading which was published in our New Union Prayer Book many years ago. In nature's ebb and flow, God's eternal law abides. When tears dim our vision or grief clouds our understandings, we often lose sight of God's eternal plan. Yet we know that growth and decay, life and death all reveal a divine purpose. God, who is our support in the struggles of life, is also our hope in death. We've set God before us and shall not despair. In God's hands are the souls of all the living and all the spirits of all flesh. Under God's protection we abide, under God's love are we comforted. O life of our life, soul of our soul, cause your light to shine into our hearts and fill our spirits with abiding trust in you. On this Shabbat, we recall the yortzites of B.L. Punch Ahrens, Gertrude Adcox, Arnold Altmark, Rosalind B. Bernheim, Jack F. Broda, Salvador Cahin, Howard Cohn, Gene Elkis, Marvin Feldman, Herman Fetter, Lon David Fleur, Joan Marcus Gilbert, Leon Godshaw II, Murray M. Gold, Mervyn Jerome Goldstein, Ruth Bromberg Goldstein, Mary Richmond Green, David Greenberg, Claire Hagedorn, Sylvia K. Einzelbach, Edward L. Cantor, David Cantor, Nessie Kessler, Bertha R. Kessler, Louis Kushner, Norm Levinson, Faye Lewitz, Leroy Lurie, Harry Margolin, Oscar Babe May, Samuel E. Mogilner, Rose Monheit, Bernard Pivo, Myra Edith Rathmel, Mickey Reese, Lydia Rogers, Barbara G. Rosenbaum, Frida Rubenstein, Neil Russakoff, Greta Korn Schwartz, Howard Henson Sisson, Mabel B. Skyer, Rebecca Slive, Mary Solomon, Leo K. Steiner Jr., Barbara Stricker Herman, and our heartfelt condolences in the recent passing of Bradley Block, uncle of Meredith and Daniel Dresden, cousin of Alan and Sandra Berman, Robert and Allison Berman, Ben and Allison Wheel, Kaki Colette Mendel, daughter of Charles and Joanna, Colette Sr., sister of Charlie Jr., and Nancy Gerdicke, and Pauline Cohen Witt, mother of Elaine Witt, we rise together as a united congregation for a Mortis Kaddish on 598. Yikadal, Vikadash, Shemei Rabbah, Bioma Divrach, Yotev, Amlich, Malchute, Bachayachon of Yomechon, Uvkayet, the called Beit Yisrael, Bagalah, Awizman Kari, V'yamru,
Amen.
Yehei Shmei Rabbah Mevarach Leolam Olamei Almaya Yitbarach V'yishtabach Yitba'ar Yitromam Yitnaseh V'yitadar V'yitalev V'yitalal Shmei Dekutsha
Barichu.
Le'ela Min Kol Birchata V'shirata Tush Bechata V'nechamata Damin Ram Yoma V'yimru
Amen.
Yehei Shlama Rabba Min Shemaya V'chayim Aleinu V'yakol Yisrael V'yimru
Amen.
Osei Shalom Bimromav Hu Yaseh Shalom Aleinu V'yakol Yisrael V'yimru Amen.
Osei Shalom Bimromav Hu Yaseh Shalom Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael me'imeru. Amen.
We conclude our service with, "This is what we need to build." Sukkah.
This is what we need to build a sukkah. Wood and branches, hammer and nails. This is what we need to build a sukkah for this holiday. First we build a frame with wood and cover it with branches. Lots of fun to do. But don't forget that we must see the sun peeking at us through the roof. This is what we need to build a sukkah. Wood and branches, hammer and nails. This is what we need to build a sukkah for this holiday. Now it's time to hang the apples, carrots and bananas, pears and popcorn too. But don't forget that we must see the sky peeking at us through the roof. This is what we need to build a sukkah. Wood and branches, hammer and nails. This is what we need to build a sukkah for this holiday. After it is finished, we can eat inside the sukkah. We can sleep there too. But don't forget that we must see the stars peeking at us through the roof. This is what we need to build a sukkah. Wood and branches, hammer and nails. This is what we need to build a sukkah for this holiday. Mo'adim l'simcha.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat shalom.